I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist, and I like to talk about attachment injuries and healing attachment trauma. And this video is in part of a series of brainstorming videos to think about self-directed healing and healing work that works. And I want to talk about feeling lonely and over-identifying with loneliness, living with loneliness for so many years, having a history of being lonely, that you cross the line, your brain, your mind, your sense of self becomes the lonely self. And this means that you have developed an identity around being a lonely person, the lonely person. It's like glasses, eyeglasses. Instead of rose-colored glasses, you have lonely-colored glasses. And you're orienting to the world through the lens of your own loneliness. Now, let me backpedal here a little bit. Let me back up. I am not talking about getting rid of feeling lonely. You are a human being. You will always be lonely. You will always have the capacity to feel loneliness. However, we want to allow the feeling state to flow through us, to come and go and come and go, and where we don't necessarily have to feel frightened by it, we don't have to lose our marbles over it, and we don't have to chronically live in this place of feeling tortured by loneliness. And that is an art, that is a practice. And if you are on your healing path, self-directed healing is about coming into your wisdom self, identifying where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, and taking a very proactive stance in maturing and personal growth. And a self-directed healing process is about identifying when it is time to transition into your next stage of healing. So what I'm sharing is potentially a little advanced, in that for some of us, we have such a strong aversion to our own feelings of loneliness, or we have lived with them so long that we have avoided them, or they have such a power over us that we haven't quite been able to make sense of the history and where they come from, and begin to have some room to maneuver within that difficult psychic space, within that difficult felt sense experience of loneliness, where we don't so quickly implode. So what I am proposing, this idea of looking at an identity of being the person who's now lonely, and you see the world through the lens of being lonely, this is a little advanced. It's a later chapter in your stages of healing, your stages of transformation. And you might get to a place where you realize you cannot continue on to view your sense of self, to see yourself in the world as the person who's lonely and has repeatedly been lonely and will continue to be lonely. There is a self-fulfilling prophecy of planting seeds, watering the seeds, guaranteeing a habituated response, an habitual way of seeing the world, where you're going to limit the possibility of letting in other resource. Now, we use our suffering as a path. The place that hurts, follow that. The place that's painful, pay attention to that. There are messages that give you clues of how to take the next step. And so if we're using our suffering as a path to release ourselves from suffering, through the process of awareness and self-compassion and getting to know yourself more intimately, there's a vulnerability here. And as you open to this vulnerability and you get to know yourself, you follow this path of suffering, and it's like building a raft, and the raft takes us to the other side. And what's on the other side? When we get to the other side of the river, what's there? We're inviting the next chapter in our stages of transformation, of resource, insight, new wisdom, a sense of joy, playfulness, spaciousness, freedom. all of these other qualities that we don't fully access because we are hanging out, overly identified, experiencing the world through the lens of our loneliness. So when we get to the other side, we also leave the raft at the end of the shore, because we can't keep walking on the healing path and carry that raft around it. We're dragging that self, dragging the lonely self with us. So this usually means we're not just going to instantly flip a switch and we get rid of it. We enter a process through choice to say goodbye to who we once were. And that might mean saying goodbye to the part of you that's overly identified with being lonely, and really realizing you don't have to be as mired, bogged down, crushed, living the hot urgency of this loneliness. You have a choice here, a bit of a freshness, a fresh perspective. So you are invited to think about, how do you begin to say goodbye to this over-identified, internalized feeling state that you have made an identity around, to begin to say goodbye to lonely self. You know, lonely self, we've been together many years, you've kept me company, we're very good friends, we have all these life experiences, lonely self, and I think I'm ready to say goodbye to you. And it's not going to be easy because I love you, and you kept me company for so long. But lonely self, I can't continue to spend the rest years of my life, spend the rest of my life attending to you, being with you, sitting with you. I have more to discover. Who am I going to be? Who am I going to become? Who are you becoming? Who do you want to be? And it would require letting go, saying goodbye to, seeing the world, being the person who's lonely. Again, to repeat, it's very, very skillful, tricky stuff here. I'm not implying that you're going to all of a sudden not have feelings. You'll still feel the feelings. You're just not going to identify them as a reflection of who you are. Your sense of self is going to be lighter, more spacious, a little more open to possibility of who you're becoming. Who will you be if you're not lonely self? And that's rhetorical. Sit with it. Meditate with it. If you like this video, if you like this content, and again, this is part of a series, I want to take a bunch of different feeling states and explore the same idea with different aspects of our suffering. But this is the content that we talk about in the membership community, Improve Your Relationships. And it is an 8-week ongoing, reoccurring program of weekly discussion topics, suggested homework activities, and 180 plus videos as resources to talk about relationships, to talk about grief processes, to talk about what is healing, and to explore where are you at right now in your own healing process, what is your stage of transformation. And we do this in a community. It's a learning laboratory of other like-minded people who are supportive and kind. And we value changing old patterns, learning some new skills, and seeing a future, changing our future from being stuck in the same old story and repeating old relationship patterns that just do not serve us. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you as a community member. You can go to alanrobarge.com/community to learn more and to register. And also more videos to come just like this. Thanks for watching.